just as you in America argue about politics. And we will do it very loudly and we'll do it very passionately. But ultimately, I think these attacks by Hamas, to a certain extent, were a slap on the face. We have to understand that we Israelis have a common destiny. We have a common situation that we are all together in facing these terrible and horrific challenges.
Yeah. Mark Regev, thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
A horrible story in the United States. A 6-year-old boy viciously stabbed to death. He was laid to rest today outside Chicago. Coming up next, a closer look at the allegations of anti-Muslim hate connected with his gruesome killing. Stay with us.
Upon approaching the 18th green, Isa Tanaka silently proclaimed, "My brother may think he's a better golfer, a more witty conversationalist. He may think he's superior, but he's not. Because I switched to consumer cellular for the same coverage for up to half the cost. He may have mom's dimples, but I pay less for wireless. I'm the one who wins." Birds, when freedom calls, we're here to answer.
Attention Medicare beneficiaries. This is an important message for everyone on Medicare. Attention everyone on Medicare. Today we are talking about 2024 Medicare Advantage plans. If you don't have a 2024 Medicare Advantage Part C plan, call now because there may be a Medicare Part C plan with additional benefits available.
Today telling us wipe out Gaza. The same people who endorse what Putin did in Chechnya, basically, flatten Grozny, or what Assad did in Aleppo. Nobody is safe with these policies. No Israelis, no Palestinians, and nor Americans.
And I think one of the things you're saying there is so important, the idea that when this war operation, whatever people want to call it, when it's over, the idea that the West or the Arab world or whomever can just say, okay, now we're just going to go back to the way we were, and the Palestinians in the West Bank and the Palestinians in Gaza are just going to be left to their own devices as they were before. And that's not a solution.
No, that's actually why we are here in the first place. And I know that it's hard in this moment of high emotions to appeal to other people's humanity. But if we ever need an international law for the protection of the people and to prevent an ethnic cleansing of Palestinians, it's now. If we ever needed to pressure governments to speak up to the Israelis and tell them that, you are the strongest army in the Middle East. You are the 11th strongest army in the world. You have atomic bombs. This is, yes, it's horrific, but it's not an existential threat. And Palestinians are not Nazis. We need to have our media, our colleagues, our friends to pressure also and rebuke and counter the narrative of, the military, the army who are telling us that no, there's no civilians. There are civilians. There are millions of people who live in Gaza. They're regular human beings. And today we hear their calls from hospitals, from on the ground, who are telling us that they fear to be exterminated. They fear that. And not only us who are hearing them, the whole region, the whole world are listening to that. And I think in this moment that we shouldn't wait for a military, to conclude whatever they are doing. And we know what they're doing because in their deeds and words, they're telling us what they're doing. Yeah. But we need now to pressure, as international community, Israelis to act lawfully, to act rationally. More than ever, we need that now. Don't wait. Because if we wait, it's going to be too late.
Rula, before you go, I know you have relatives in East Jerusalem and in Israel, and I'm wondering how it is for Palestinian Israelis right now in this incredibly awful period after that incredibly awful October 7th attack and now this war. How are your relatives doing?
Thank you for asking, Jake. Some of my relatives work in hospitals. They're taking care of these injured who were attacked in October while listening to, basically other Israelis calling to exterminate Palestinians, to wipe them out. Many of them change the way they dress because they fear retaliation. Many of these relatives who talk to people in Gaza, in hospitals working in Gaza, and they hear the voices and voice messages telling, basically telling them, we are waiting to be slaughtered. We know that the world doesn't care about us. We are waiting to be slaughtered. And also, while all this happens, the attacks in the West Bank never ceased. 55 Palestinians in the West Bank, where Hamas is not there, been killed last week. In 7 days, they've been killed. The attacks of the settlers, and while the government is, the military are doing what they're doing in Gaza, in the same time, they're building settlement and continue to confiscate land. People in Jerusalem are terrified because ministers in Israel and politicians, including the moderate president, are telling them there's no civilian, and they're repeating the narrative, Palestinians are Nazis, and injecting this narrative to basically say, you all are enemy, and so we will go after you sooner or later. And you have, ministers like Ben Gvir and Smotrich, and that's why they're appealing to the international community to pressure this government to stop any kind of retaliation that can, lead to a regional wider conflict, but also lead to a position where Israel themselves, they ask themselves what America did after the war on terror. Are we producing more extremists? Are we plunging ourselves in a forever war?
Those lessons from the global
Let's look for a spiritual solution, if that's a possibility, that keeps death and destruction away from happening. It's always a possibility, a non-violent, peaceful, spiritual solution. That's what she was saying. She had a lot of good ideas.
Incredible, amazing. My go-to is Lumify eye drops. Lumify dramatically reduces redness. And look at the difference. My eyes look brighter and whiter for up to 8 hours. Lumify is kind of amazing. Seriously?